Not that original.
See, he said he wasn't very.
Oh, see, very small.
What is this? Time is now 6:30. I'll order the regular meeting of the Tilton Planning Board. And Julie will not be here.
Oh.
I'm glad to see everybody else is here because this is going to be a work session to talk about any changes we may want to make in subdivision and zoning. And Dari's presented us with an easel, which I thought, unless anybody has any other idea, we could start by going through the zoning and talking about any changes we think are necessary. We might want to start by talking about general topics that we have seen through the past couple of years, needs for changes. And you remember last year we had nothing to present at town meeting because the dates just slip up on us very quickly. So that's why I think it's good that we're starting now. And if we start with general topics, we can then narrow it down and then come up with specifics. So Dari's offered to post things.
Sure, yeah, I mean, I can, if we want to do this, you know, have me write down on here general areas that we address in zoning. And if you want, I'll kick it off.
All right, we would
Thought.
You can come up here, sure.
Well, it's just a workshop.
They said it right up with the gate.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen it
Now you're at the
at
pool
the table
table.
now.
Yeah, really. Oh, big kiss.
So I'll just write 2015. Do we want to start specific to zoning, or do we just want to keep it open and people can just talk
Well, we can
about
keep it open and we
Okay.
can
We were
bring.
supposed to just do zoning this week. That was the conversation.
Well,
Where's my
let's
subdivision
just,
stuff?
let's just brainstorm. Well, I think I had asked you to let people know to bring review both the subdivision and the zoning, but we're not gonna get to the real specifics this time anyway. So let's just start with brainstorming with the big topics that we know we have issues with.
Definitions.
Okay.
You're so screwed up.
And contradictory in some cases.
So they're contradictory.
Well, they don't carry through the
The
zoning.
zoning, they
And they're,
don't carry through the zoning, and then when you get to subdivision, they are even more screwed up.
Zoning.
you know, it's,
All right. So I'm writing. I'll know what this means when I
I mean,
go to,
apartment, a dwelling unit and a multiple dwelling.
What's that?
So here's the definition of apartment, a dwelling unit and a multiple dwelling. So what the hell's a
Right.
dwelling?
Yeah.
It's a building with multiple dwelling units in it. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the definitions don't carry through the body of the zoning. We changed from dwelling and eliminated. Where's all those highlights? Seasonal. We eliminated seasonal and called it, I believe, transient. But if you go on page 31, what section is this? It talks about seasonal, seasonal. For business affecting seasonal resort community.
So do you want seasonal?
I don't care.
That's
I
too
wanna-
specific for.
I want to
think
have
that's something that-
continuity. If we're going to eliminate seasonal dwelling units, then we shouldn't talk about seasonal dwelling units.
We have so many.
Either or.
Those are transient,
Okay.
but are they? See, I don't think it's
Yeah.
seasonal. I think of those as two separate entities.
Well, we could never describe seasonal. We could never get a proper definition for seasonal. What's seasonal? Is it 8 weeks? Is it 10 weeks? When does it begin? When does it end? Is it spring, summer, winter, fall? And is it a
Are all
portion of
seasons-
each of those? It's a transient more defined than, and there is language in here where it says that we eliminated seasonal dwelling units. And then I found, like a backland lot.
Is
So,
transient defined?
I don't know.
Yes, seasonal.
Yeah.
It says,
Perfect. Change, if you're
I'm
gonna,
not
if
sure
you're
if
gonna
it is, and
hinge,
that's the problem.
if you're gonna
too.
hinge the ordinance
Transient
on
lodging.
transient, you have to describe what transient means.
It says
to us.
transient lodging,
Only transient lodging.
right, so
Now,
those are the kind of things.
there's seasonal, I don't know, see, to me, a lodging is like a
hotel room?
hotel.
A cabin,
Exactly.
So-
This
Seasonal
defines,
cabin.
as it means any unit,
Yeah.
group of units, dwelling, building, group of buildings with a single complex of buildings which is rented to guests for temporary occupancy, such as but not limited to inns, motels, hotels, bed and breakfast, tourist homes, and cabins, ski lodges, and lodging homes, cottages, blah, blah, blah. But this implies that they're ones that are rented.
All right. Well, can I just propose, that, you know, we don't want to get
No,
too
it's specifics,
specifics.
exactly.
Now, maybe you can come back with suggestions.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I mean, I guess that was a thought I had, that if we try and, you know, sort of grab onto actual language and wordsmith, we inevitably will be doing some of that at meetings, but from the get-go, I had a thought that maybe we can have some of these more general meetings like Chairman Alden suggested tonight, and then you guys can give me some stuff to work on, and then I can sort of keep giving things back to you and kind of reaching these stopping points where I need more input from the board. And that way we get something where the best of both worlds. One is it's something that's done in public, you know, the real things that matter, the decisions that matter are made here at the planning board meetings on camera with an audience if people want to come. But then the legwork that should be done by someone who's paid to be here in town hall all day will be done by me outside of a meeting.
You're gonna be our slave. It's like child daycare. It says shall be defined as per RSA 204-C722. But then it goes on to explain what a child daycare agency is and a group child daycare center without referring to the RSA. So I mean, it's like, well, what's the difference? And when you read the description, it's like, that's what I think a daycare is.
Another thing that I might add under definitions is, and if you guys agree, is that there are cases where the definition is the sole place where one element of, or like a regulatory language shows up. And if you don't read that definition, you might not get that. I suggest that, my thought is that we should look for instances of that and say, okay, should this actually be here in the definition? Or can it be moved to the body where where this topic actually comes up in the zoning ordinance? Or should we leave it?
You mean
or
reference
both?
to an RSA, particularly out?
I have a lot of.
Instead of having the list
about
of
both.
definitions,
how about both?
move some, I think there should be in the definitions. I think people refer to it.
Yeah, so let me make sure I'm saying that you're not getting rid of the definition. You're taking like if somebody says dwelling unit and the definition of dwelling unit, and then it starts listing off, you know, square footage and months of the year and all this kind of stuff that's sort of setting the regulations for dwelling units. It's fine if the board decides that needs to be in the definition because of the fact that that's where a lot of people flip, but it shouldn't be the only place
That's
to
right.
check out.
I agree.
All right.
I agree.
Do
So
you
I'm
want me
gonna
to
say,
send you my corrections
yeah,
rather than
definitely.
bothering with them here?
Yeah, I think so. If that works for you, if you think that would work.
I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. If you did, you know, if you had a bunch of stuff you want, like I have some things I'd like to share.
Actually, I
tonight,
could just
potentially.
leave this with you.
Okay, that's fine. So how do I want to write this thing? Body language that should be elsewhere, I guess. Hopefully I'll understand what that means.
You can turn back the tape.
So then it's like, we have a definition for hotel and motel, which is 3 sentences. And then we have a definition for inn, a commercial facility for the housing and feeding of transients. Anybody
it's
know
a
the
hotel.
definition between an inn and a hotel?
And do we care, right? Is
Right,
that-
so
yeah,
why isn't a hotel motel or inn?
Right.
Yeah.
Or in hotel motel? I mean,
Right.
Well,
whichever
that's
you wanna have
if you
preferred.
start reading on the definitions, and then it lists bed and breakfast, and it lists that about 3 different places.
Well, bed and breakfast is a different definition than hotel motel.
Yeah, but it's listed under seasonal, transient.
So it is trans.
Oh, now here's one.
Well, I'm not sure.
So, fixtures is not in here as a definition by itself. That, within the definitions, we talk about fixture or luminaire, which is a lighting apparatus. Then we have grandfathered fixtures, which, from the definition, appear to be structures. Means fixtures not conforming to this chapter that were in place at the time of this chapter went into full force and effect. So,
Is that written by a lawyer?
Uh,
By a lawyer.
Or somebody that wanted to.
Well, read light trespass.
What is it?
Light trespass
no, I have all those
means
highlighted.
light emitted by a fixture, and fixture's not defined,
Light fixture.
that shines beyond the property on which the fixture is installed.
But we're using the word fixture to define a light apparatus and a structure of some sort, or a fixture, like a porch maybe.
Oh, so you're saying that we're using, because I think a lot of time I'll say, well, wait a minute, the Webster's, or whatever, the, Merriam-Webster dictionary definition is fine, and we don't need to redefine it here, and so, like, we're not gonna take, like, and define lettuce, like, there are words that are known, and to me, I would usually think fixture would be one of those, that there's, there's a broadly accepted definition of fixture among speakers of American English. But it sounds like in this case, fixture, it's starting to be used with some kind of,
Something else.
Yeah,
Something
right,
other than light.
right,
I mean,
yeah.
I wanted to.
So we should call it what
accessory
it is.
buildings or
Yeah.
accessories, I mean, I don't know.
But here,
We'll leave
but
that for you to figure out.
okay.
if you look
yeah.
under the lighting, for instance, it says luminaire means the same as fixture.
Yep.
Okay, so then, right. Yeah,
It's
right.
not,
Isn't that a
Like I say, I
character
can
from,
read this for you.
yeah.
And then
Yeah.
marina, I want to know, really,
what?
is the definition between a commercial marina and a residential marina only the fact that they don't service or repair or sell fuel? A residential
No,
marina?
right.
I don't know.
It's a residential dock.
It's a
Our
boat, two
pier.
boats maybe.
A marina's a marina, whether,
Right.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, right.
And we don't have a definition for residential or commercial
Marina.
Or just in general.
in general.
Well, that sounds silly.
But again, or does it, I always go back to that question, well, what, is it not sufficiently part of our language as Americans? I mean,
Well, I think it's it's like.
This
the
is a
other
legal document.
Fixture luminaires, I
Okay.
think since we refer to residential and commercial lot, just my thoughts, that perhaps we should have a definition. What does this board feel is means for this purpose? And then structure accessory. It's supposed to be accessory structure.
It's a fixture.
You know what I mean?
a structure accessory, that's like a
And then
sign.
it says structure accessory, and then it goes, an accessory structure.
All right, so sounds like we've got a lot right within definitions.
Yeah.
Should we move on to the next one, or should we keep going with definitions?
Well, I think we can all get involved in actual definitions. I think that's the kind of thing that you maybe need to go through to see contradictions,
Mm-hmm.
or needs for more explicit definitions, or even in some cases, whether there's even a need for certain definitions. Because I'm not sure there's a need for some of these.
Yeah. So,
You're done right well, if you don't have one, someone's gonna say, well, it was not defined.
Well, I think the problem with that is that we use it so much throughout the zoning, that if we don't have an interpretation of what this board is calling a fixture,
yeah,
for example,
Like structure and
Yeah.
setback, what we got into out
right,
in.
we have some very general terms.
Yeah.
mhm,
And I think there's some repetitiveness in the definitions,
definitely.
Like in-
I've seen that, yeah.
separately from the others.
Yeah, where they'll like add that adverb to it. Like you said, residential something and commercial something, what do we have to go with that with everything now? Define a commercial bathroom versus a residential bathroom?
A residential marina and a commercial marina.
Yeah.
That would always
Once
be
our house
a
goes.
Well, we can't site plan that marina because it's residential.
Because they don't sell gas.
Yeah.
Where's my house go?
residential.
So, I guess, you know, again, I'll ask, since this is our first sort of major topic, and we're just sort of now settling in on how we want to do procedure-wise, do we want to, sort of, once we wrap up this topic, do we want to say, okay, you know, say we move on to the next thing, that you, well, maybe we can talk about this at the end of the night, but one of the thoughts I had is that maybe we'd say, you guys write down your thoughts, like Catherine's already done, on definitions, and email them to me by such and such a date, and then I'll take those changes and incorporate them, and we can talk about them at the next meeting, do something like that. I don't know, just a thought as we move forward.
Well,
All
at the
right.
next workshop, I think, because I
Okay.
think that's what we ought to do. We ought to schedule workshops,
Okay,
probably once a month if we don't
Okay.
have a lot of cases coming in.
okay, all right, good.
Is everybody agreeable to that, or?
Yes.
I think that would be a good way to do it.
Well, our next workshop would be for June.
Probably be June, 25th or something.
23rd. June 23rd.
23rd.
Yeah.
And potentially, I don't know, we may have to have workshops even on nights where we do have cases as we go
If we're gonna
forward.
get this done for,
March.
this year, we'll have to have actual schedule these.
Excellent.
Yeah,
We're not
because
waiting
we have
for
to
it.
have,
We
be
have
finished by,
Right.
in February, I believe.
Only before February.
Yeah. Should
Zoning
we,
is what, November?
one thing, yeah, I can send out the schedule from last year to give us a little bit of a
We
sense.
don't have the new schedule for
I
this.
don't think they've come up with one yet, which proves that we're somewhat ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Isn't it on
I think it comes out October 1st.
Calendar.
But,
the? Yeah, I think we
budget-
have it upstairs, the local
I
government.
was gonna say, I'm
sends out
pretty
the-
sure it was
It's
upstairs at
it's
least.
in,
That's why I
You're saying
thought
they
we
it's
already
were
in
have
your
one
planning
for-
book,
Or
it's so many
something.
days before,
Hmm.
and
I
I think
mean-
it's sometime in November, isn't it?
Well, I feel like.
When you have to have the public hearings or something?
Yeah, something like that. But I felt like it was much later in the year last year that OEP announced that they had last year's calendar ready. So I'm assuming that this year's isn't ready, but I could be wrong.
No, probably the calendar isn't, but you
Okay,
just figure it
but
out.
you can figure it out, yeah.
Signage.
Yeah, definitely.
That
This will be
was,
fun.
that was mine.
Our signage is so not conducive
Look
to
how big he puts it.
business. This is what I like.
That's a violation of the signage
That's
ordinance.
And if you could, if you would pull out the public meeting we had on signage, remember that? We had, was it last summer?
Yeah, I still have it, I still have all the notes.
Alright.
Because there were some good things brought up at that meeting.
I think Allery wrote this at one point, maybe last year, the year before, based on a public hearing. But I read this underneath signage on page 12, freestanding nameplates or signs. And as I read through this, and I gotta tell you, I didn't read it word for word, but I looked through it, and I was trying to find freestanding nameplates somewhere within the ordinance. I couldn't find it.
Or are you saying it's a term that's defined but not used?
Well, it's a term right underneath the signage that says freestanding nameplates or signs.
Oh,
And then to promote or advertise the business, but, so there's an example of, you
yeah.
know,
Right.
freestanding nameplates, why? If it's not even used
Yeah, get rid of it.
anywhere else in the ordinance,
Yeah.
it's
right,
only there to
right.
confuse.
Yeah, right.
But we don't usually have freestanding signs, do we? I mean, they're,
Well, we do.
Yeah.
they're a menace
Yeah.
though.
The thunder
They do
signs.
levitate.
I've seen some do, maybe it was just.
You have a freestanding sign, don't you?
Oh, the
What is the
Sanders board
definition?
signs are freestanding, whereas
I
they
think
don't have a post in the ground.
like-
I was thinking more-
It's not attached to a structure, it's not attached to a building, right?
Does that mean the ones across from the golf course?
Across from the golf course?
Yeah, there's some billboards right in that
Those
No,
are
neighborhood,
billboards.
those are on
Those are not-
posts into the ground.
but they're not freestanding.
No, a freestanding sign is like this. You fold it up and put it there. Or those electrical
It's
signs.
the,
You
the
wheel
freestanding
them out,
sign are the ones
yeah,
down in
hit them,
front of,
you turn them
I
on.
know
Blooming
what
Art.
she's talking about.
How do you know it's
Blooming
not
Art.
just a sign that someone puts out for their business?
Yeah.
It's it's not attached to the building.
And then there's a billboard sign.
but
thing.
it's
Then
not
there's a
freestanding
walking
if it's
freestanding
attached
sign.
to pole, because
Oh,
you're not
I
gonna
love
take
that. I
it
love
out.
that job.
Isn't the big McDonald's sign or the big Walmart sign that are
Yeah,
100
aren't
feet
those
tall?
freestanding tall?
I thought those were freestanding signs.
Well,
No,
that's why I thought Judy's was a
Yeah,
freestanding
that's what I'm saying,
sign.
like, Judy, any sign that's not attached to the building.
That's what I thought
Billboard?
freestanding
get rid
was.
of it.
We don't even
I
know.
mean, even like if you go by where Lowe's is, there's a sign up there that has Chili's and Pizza Hut.
Right.
That's technically.
Actually, it says freestanding nameplate, not sign.
Or signs.
Or sign.
Freestanding, or signs.
Or sign.
Well, it's,
So does the signage, I'm sorry,
no, that, it shows that we need to do something because even we don't
we
know
don't
what
know.
it is.
I mean, literally, yeah, I mean, whenever someone asks about signage, I immediately open the zoning where it's confusing and.
Yeah, but that doesn't always give me the answer because there's grandfathered clauses and
Santa Claus.
Santa
Yes,
Clauses
yes.
and different areas. No, seriously.
Yeah, no, I know.
I suspect it means the sign not attached to the building.
Do board members have thoughts on the best angle of attack? You know, some of the other changes in zoning, I personally feel comfortable with sort of seeking out some model language and
Careful, we got this from Concord.
sort of, you know, sharing some of my own experiences on that particular subject. Signage I don't have a lot of personal experience with, so I guess it would be super helpful for me to have some thoughts from the board on, I mean, do we want to look other communities, signage,
I
sort of.
think that's
as
one of the
starting-
reasons we're in the mess we're in now.
Because we did that.
What works for
Our signage ordinance is just a copy from Concord.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, Tilton and Concord should not have the same signage ordinance.
Well, it's extremely restrictive, and it doesn't take into the conditions that Tilton already has. I
Mhm.
mean, as you exit 20, we're gonna limit the amount of signage. Are you kidding?
Right.
That's what
See,
ran
I-
on Warren years and years ago.
And that's the kind of thing
There's
that
no
came,
choice but to give people
that's the
signs.
kind of thing that came up.
Well,
Well,
watch it. Look at this, 1,000 of them.
We lost in court.
But really, we have exit 20 and we have historic downtown Tilton. And I don't think we should look at the two and say they're
I
exactly the
think
same.
when we're doing the signage ordinances over, we need to do it zone by zone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because each zone
I
brings its own
agree
set
with
of
that.
concerns.
I agree with that. We have billboards that through the years have creeped out by your
Tilton will
house.
walk
That's-
in.
I know. When I first became a selectman, there were 4. I think there were 7 a year ago. That's it.
How come, okay, we won't talk enforcement. I don't understand why
Yeah.
new ones go up and
Good idea,
they're
let's not
not.
bring that
Well,
No.
we took a picture of them 15 years ago.
in. All right, so, so for signage, maybe go through zone by zone. Some thought just came up that I've noticed is gonna, I think, sort of a theme that we're gonna be dealing with throughout this is there's two schools of thought, and like, do you want to set your zoning up so that it promotes and sort of propagates what already exists in the zone? I would say if you like what's in the zone, yes, and generally you want to enhance that zone and sort of let it become its fullest. But in other cases, the zoning may actually want to change that zone and say, okay, this is a problem that we're having in this zone, and we want to move away from that. So I guess I feel like, and now it's come up just in the signage discussion that.
We have troubles in the downtown area because the signage is so restrictive. And people move in, commercial businesses move in, and then shortly thereafter move out because they cannot attract customers. People don't know they exist because they cannot put a sign out, a simple feather sign out that says, you know, jewelry or crafts or something.
Or even if they put a sign out,
And we
because
don't-
of the size restriction, people can't see it, or because of,
The trees.
and the tattoo parlor, as an
Are they
example.
supposed to be trimmed?
Yes, but they're never gonna, I mean, it's gonna be 10 years before the trees are tall enough. You know, if they keep creeping the branches up so they can see the building. Because those trees right now, if you drive down through Main Street,
You can't see.
especially on the north side of Main Street, you can't see the sign. Oh, what's that shop? No,
You
looks like
better
it's
be watching the
closed.
road, because people are coming and
That's really
going.
the biggest problem, is you
Yeah.
can't look side to side
No.
because there's too many weird things going on.
Before
on
this,
the
they could
pavement.
put out a feather sign, and you'll see the hole still exists that says, you know, tattoos.
And some people are,
I was
have
with
the
the flags,
Yeah.
those holes were for, we used to have American flags,
That
that's what
too.
the holes were.
But they would put feather signs in them as well, like there, some of them have them there now. And then you have some businesses in downtown that were able to make a case for grandfathered sign, even though the signage, if you read it, there's no such thing really. So you have a couple businesses, one of the barber shops and one of the jewelry stores, that has signs that really are not permitted in the zoning.
But
And they made a case. And our attorney said, back off, when we wanted to enforce. You remember that? That was what, 2 years ago?
I don't, it was last year, I think. You're talking about the
Let's
one at the end of the building?
Yeah.
It's been
Yeah.
a number of times over a number of years.
It was
Downtown
2013.
businesses have come and.
So, I think that
the
we have to,
concerns.
we don't want our downtown to turn into a ghost town.
mm-hmm.
No,
Yeah, and people are getting pissed off, they have a business, well, this guy can have a bigger sign than I can, and it's like,
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
fair, it isn't.
No, and then especially where, you know, the municipal trees are blocking their signage.
There's no way
Can
that
we
we could
replant
put a
those?
sign up that said what is downtown,
Chuck,
is
no,
there?
I don't want.
Like, before you get
Mm.
to
Yeah, we
the
could.
downtown,
We could.
You could put it up, but
Like
I can't
that.
read it. It would have to be huge in order to read it
And-
coming down.
Sixth Street,
And-
lower corner.
Well, you don't want a huge sign, where are you gonna put it?
On the
In the
corner.
park? No.
That's the best.
that's Pocket Park,
Yep, there's another Peter's.
To do what? What are you
There's
doing?
another Peter's.
put a sign up that said what businesses are
It
downtown.
is on the north side.
You know, and just make it so you can slide them in or slide them out as they move. Gotta have something, they're not advertised. They aren't, they're not advertising, they don't stay because they're not advertised. People don't know they're there.
There's one right here.
A little town's gonna just,
Well, I certainly want to see downtown drive. I do, I really do.
But we have to do it.
And I don't know how to do that. I don't want it to be, like, you know, neon
Well, we've
signs.
got,
You
we've
don't want
got
to
And
be-
that
issues,
stuff,
we've got,
but I do want to.
we've got signage issues, we've got parking issues, we've got the fact that we have a main highway going right through downtown. I mean, we have some obstacles that are pretty hard to
Parking
overcome.
won't
Lighting.
change. We haven't got any more spaces.
well,
Right.
But the signs we could work on.
what did you say?
She
Outdoor
said
lighting.
lighting,
Oh,
but I think that lighting's two categories, there's signage lighting
Mhm.
and other lighting.
Right. So I'll have to put,
Ours says outdoor lighting.
Oh, good. You got the other one.
lighting, animation, all that
Luminaries.
stuff.
Yeah.
And
The animation's in the signage.
that's why, I'm just trying to finish off the sign category. And then I'll flip the page and put lighting.
I think we should define what's legally installed. All outdoor lighting fixtures existing and legally installed. So, before a certain amount of time, you know, I didn't went back into this, when did we adopt the state building codes? In the 80s? But
Before my time.
pre that, you were not required to have a licensed electrician to install lighting.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just meaning that you did your proper permitting, basically, and you didn't,
I don't know,
Just
that's why I
slap
think it
sign
should
up.
just be more defined.
yeah.
And legally install an operative before the effective date of this chapter, exempt from these requirements, until the end of the grandfather period.
Which is.
What does that mean?
Never?
Yeah, so,
In some
so when
cases,
you
or-
give up the use,
right.
what does that mean?
Wow, yeah.
I
So-
think it said something about 10 years from when this is signed, the grandfather ends.
Well,
We can't do that.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
I don't
that's-
think so. And you have people, and I can give you a really good example, one out by Lockmere, Meltaway. There was never, there's not supposed to be signs on the roof.
Right.
That one's another one that suddenly appeared.
I don't think that it's above the crest of the roof. It's on the front of the building, it's on the end of the building.
It's supposed to be
It's on
on
the
the
roof.
facade, and that's specifically defined in here as the front surface of the building.
Yeah.
But, so that's not the roof, but that could be the peak between the roof.
On the end of the building, which is not the front, they got a big picture of a cow, and, I mean,
So that's probably an illegal finding.
that might be illegal, but the one in the front doesn't go above the roof.
Well, it says here,
But there's still a square
Can't
footage.
be installed on the roof or over the.
So so in lighting, this one, I like this one too. This one's really good. Residential and commercial outdoor lighting fixtures and devices shall be. Well, we don't site plan residential,
Yeah,
so why are we even worried about residential outdoor lighting fixtures?
because
If I put
it
up
has
a
to
light
be in
that
there,
shines into
right?
your bedroom, that would be a problem.
Because if it weren't in there, then people could put any kind of lighting they would want on their residence, and,
They can.
well, doesn't the town?
This is ORC zoning, this is for commercial properties, we don't site plan
So
houses.
you, okay.
So if my daughter decides to go out there and
Well, how
light
does
up
the
her
board feel
yard.
about that then? How does the board feel about the apparent lack of regulation between one neighbor, so
The building
Other-
codes cover residences, which is enforced by the fire district, because the town of Tilton never adopted
mean-
them.
but the fire district wouldn't enforce anything about lighting.
No.
are we saying that if you had a floodlight shine and it shine right into your neighbor's window, that's not a violation of the zoning ordinance? It's a residence?
We
I have a neighbor who
We
has
have
that.
no authority.
How do you
This
feel
board-
about that?
This board has no authority
Well,
over
okay,
residential.
what if,
Hey,
well,
it's a
wait.
live free or die
Wait,
state.
but
For
the
me-
zoning ordinance gives the code enforcement, or gives the town authority to say, hey, you've got a light that's shining in your neighbor's window, that's a violation of the zoning ordinance, cut it out.
What if I wanted to build my nice house and put up, tennis court lights, build a tennis court light, and the lights are on 24/7?
Or say a football field.
Well, I was exactly what I was thinking of.
But that's clearly that's under site plan review
That
territory. I
was
think
site
she's
plan
talking
review,
about.
yes.
She's talking about when there's not site
Private
plan
home.
review, I don't know, we don't have to figure this out tonight, but my thought on that is that if we don't have anything saying you can't shine a light in your neighbor's window, that we should have something that says you can't shine.
Well, I think that could be a selectman's ordinance, but I don't think it should be in our zoning.
Okay.
Just like we have dog poop ordinance.
That's
I mean,
all- that's
I would say
all-
that probably most towns, or many towns, maybe more towns
Next
than
thing.
not, regulate residential lighting through the zoning ordinance, but you're right, it could be it could be in the nuisance ordinance.
Mhm.
You know,
I mean, the
or-
next thing we're gonna be telling people what plants to plant in the yard and when to mow the lawns.
Well,
Well, some
Yeah, I
people
like
should
a
tell
jungle
them.
yard.
Well, wait, I think would you acknowledge though that regulating what type of plants people can plant represents a much further reach into someone's life than telling someone you can't shine a light in your neighbor's window? Wouldn't
But
you
that's,
agree?
that's subjective. I mean,
Okay.
I may not
Sure.
think my light is shining in their bedroom window because maybe it wasn't a bedroom when I put the light up.
I mean, in the
Maybe
end,
it was a closet and then they turned it into a bedroom.
well,
I
if
mean,
there's
see, it
an,
becomes civil.
I think it depends on your zone.
I think it is. I think in the end, whether we
becomes a
have
civil issue.
whether we have the language or not, somebody's going to be able to get that light out of their window.
That's
because
right.
It's a civil,
It's a civil
right.
issue.
It's a
And then,
disturbance of their life,
Well,
liberty, and
worse.
I
pursuit
did
of
it.
happiness.
And then in the
I did that
same
with my-
paragraph, it describes.
what page are you
The
on?
light, 18, the light rays emitted by a fixture, whether directly from a bulb or from the fixture, are restricted to regions below an angle 15 degrees beneath the horizontal plane, running through the point on the fixture where the light is emanated. What the frick does that mean?
I'll bet
15
it means
degree
something.
angle?
Yeah, it's saying
Who's gonna
horizontal.
measure that?
code enforcement.
I don't think that's that bad. But,
You just keep writing.
yeah, no kidding. Who cares what I say?
And then it talks about, we've always said downcast lighting, have we not?
Yes.
Yes.
And fully shielded wall mount fixtures, and so
Yeah.
unshielded wall mount fixtures.
It's
Of course,
just a
they're
bulb on
limited
the
to
side of the
800
house.
lumens, which is a 40-watt bulb, but we've always said downcast lighting, downcast lighting, downcast lighting. So that's not an unshielded wall mount fixture, I think it's gonna have to be either or.
Mhm.
Because the 1, 3, and 4 are all fully shielded. 2 is unshielded. And B, if a motion sensor is used, unshielded lights may be up to 1,800 total lumens. After being triggered, are aimed at least 45 degrees below the horizontal and are not aimed onto adjacent property. Horizontal of what?
And
Horizon?
did we follow all of these with the situation we have now with this problem?
And I believe in our definitions it describes
So,
nuisance glare. I think it does. I think it describes nuisance glare.
Means light that creates
And
a noise
disabling
or
glare.
aggravation, but does not create a potentially hazardous situation.
Is disabling glare in there?
but only from commercial properties.
Right.
Doesn't
And
say that.
what I'm getting at is what is light trespass?
Disabling glare means
Yeah.
lighting that impairs visibility and creates a potentially hazardous situation for either pedestrians or motorists.
Do we have light trespass? I don't know, making a joke. I don't think so.
Like
We
trespass.
do, okay, good.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Nice.
Means light emitted by a fixture that shines beyond the property on which the fixture is installed. There's fixture, yeah. Light level shall not exceed a maximum of 0.05 lumens per square foot of the property line as measured at a vertical point 5 feet above grade. Light trespass
Yeah.
measurements shall be made at the property line with a meter held normal to a line between any offending light source and the light meter.
Gotta have some kind of a, something, because we're going through a light spillover thing right now.
Yeah,
Very
I know we are.
specific
And that's
way
why
of
what I just said
So-
to him, did we?
I'm
measuring
just
it.
saying you should look at those 3 definitions to make sure that they mesh.
Mm. Well, immediately.
And it doesn't say anything about what we mean when we talk about shields, light shields. And it talks about soccer fields and football fields and so on.
Mm.
Not about residents.
Beyond the structure's edges, no illumination may project beyond the highest point of the structure or beyond the structure's edges.
That's not gonna work. That
And
means
then
you
on
can't
page
see it
19
from the property line.
Page 19, here again.
That's
it
where I'm
talks
reading
about
from, that's where
The
I'm.
uplighting,
Yeah.
uplighting,
Yeah.
uplighting, flag illumination, and when possible shall originate from a fixture at the top of the pole. Well, we don't say that that fixture should downcast, although logically it should. I like J, internally illuminated signs shall be constructed so that the top of the sign does not allow light to emit directly towards the sky, and so that the light is encased all the way around.
And any
Light can only
is any
emanate
light
through the
source permitted
front.
by this chapter may be used
I
to
don't think we
how it
want
should
any
be.
But for
town
heaven's sakes,
shooting light up in the
We
air.
can't let that go up.
I would like to see that one
We
stay.
have to abide with the New Mexico Light Sky Protection Act.
Sure.
So I think Jay should talk about, like the flag illumination. It gives most of these are 900 or 800, although they both say 40-watt incandescent bulb. But I think Jay should also limit the amount of wattage you could put in there for light.
For what is it, flag lighting?
No, Jay,
What
you're gonna
is-
wanna look at flag lighting, like I said, I'll
Oh.
leave this with you. Now, does
Well,
anybody
even
know what
under,
the New Mexico?
even under the general standards and provisions, it says fully shielded condition can be accomplished by using a surrounding architectural structure.
Yeah.
Opaque awnings can be used to meet this condition. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here that is just shocking, to me anyway.
Yeah, I don't know, like, again, it doesn't
Well,
matter what I think. I'm not
technologies-
seeing the shock, like, I feel like it's, some of these things that you guys are reading that have some technical language, to me, they don't sound that bad. Are you saying that you don't like it because it's technical and it doesn't?
No, I just,
Well, I think we should definitely know what the New Mexico Night Sky Protection Act is.
yeah, it's on mercury
Well, hold
vapor
on.
lights, and do we have any mercury vapor
Does it
lights? I
require
don't
people
know.
to comply with it?
What's it called?
New Mexico.
Mexico Night Sky Protection Act. It's L on page 19.
Working on
He's cool.
They can see
No,
the outlet
I don't-
off
we
from
don't
my
need
house.
to learn about it tonight.
We have some
it.
light.
I'll send everyone a link, so you don't have to.
Parking
Google it.
lot lighting shall be shut off by 11 p.m.
That's a problem.
unless a specific scheduled
That's a problem.
event
No.
Maybe because
requires.
it doesn't anywhere in
Because it's
town?
not happening, yeah,
No.
I've got the
And
note on
it
that.
shouldn't happen.
Nine
Exactly,
918.
I agree,
It should not happen.
I agree,
Unless it's near a residential neighborhood.
right.
918.
We have an
There-
agreement with Lowe's that they're lighting, I think they're lighting by, is it Grand Street? Well, they're lighting, I think, every other pole, and I think they have it shielded down so the lights shine towards the building and not
Just
towards
in
Grand
general.
Street. There is light pollution on Grand Street though, that's for sure.
All through town.
But see, here's an instance where they say nuisance glare, and now they're calling it nuisance light trespass instead of light trespass. For disabling glare.
Yeah, and it says if
I
it's,
just think we need to be
if there's
consistent.
light inside a structure, and it spills out to the outside, it has to, you have to determine if it's a nuisance glare.
Inside a
So,
structure.
here's
That's
exemptions.
rather subjective.
So I'm back to, we always say downcast lighting, but our own zoning says unshielded outdoor light fixtures, single or multiple, provided that each light fixture does not exceed 800 lumens, is exempt from this ordinance.
How much is 800
Just to
lumens?
give
40
you,
watts.
just a
Not a
quick
lot.
glance, some of these things that we're grasping at kind of pertain to the New Mexico
Sure.
Night Sky
I mean,
Protection Act.
yeah, like a lot, right.
So that's
I
probably
think
why
in
it's-
general, this was, yeah, it seems to have been written with concern to some of the general concerns that you see in the, that are voiced in the planning community of like, it's, yeah, dark skies is commonly the term. So just like, that's where you see, they don't want light coming out of the top of the sign, they want the sign covered up so that the actual, when you look up at the sky, you can see stars. Like a lot of it is just simply that, it's an aesthetic. Just like people don't want views of mountains destroyed, they don't want views of the night sky, they want to be able to look it up and see the stars, just like their grandparents and their grandparents used to do, yeah, so.
And I would take close notice of the grandfathering.
That's what I said, 10.
Yeah, that sounds kind of
Here's what's
scary.
in 10 years right there.
So sometimes even like this new LED lighting is brighter and more intense than the lighting that is there now.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You know?
All right, should we move next?
Why not?
Who wants, who's got one other? Anyone other than Catherine, do you want to take a turn at it?
Enforcement?
I was gonna say enforcement's what I have next.
Enforcement
Yeah.
on,
I thought it was pretty.
It's still in lighting.
are we
Personally,
still on lighting? Okay.
I thought enforcement was pretty good. The only thing that I was gonna say about enforcement on the penalties for violation, and I would check with, the police department, but it says, who violates the provision of this chapter shall be deemed guilty of a petty misdemeanor. And that probably is a violation. Not a petty misdemeanor, but I'd check. And this says, and upon conviction may be punished by a fine of not more than $500. And a violation is up to $1,000. Only ours says, or imprisonment.
90 days.
On more than 9 days.
That'll teach them.
Or both such fine and imprisonment for each separate offense. Each 24-hour period during any portion of which any violation of this chapter is committed or continues to exist shall constitute a separate offense. I think it's a violation, I think it's a petty misdemeanor, but I'd ask them, just so we have it correct. We're gonna put
pretty
people in
hard.
jail.
Sounds pretty hard.
Don't mess with me, I'll put you in jail, dude. I told you,
Sandwich board.
40-watt bulb, you got 60 in there, you're going to jail. I was liking that.
Why, did you have coffee tonight or what?
The next is all the
I had
Yeah.
Coca-Cola,
Oh, there you
and
go.
I don't drink soda.
What's
all
that?
this seasonal
They're
resort
constantly-
stuff, okay, it doesn't say transient, it's seasonal,
Okay,
cottages, you know.
so,
And I'm not talking about the definition, I'm talking about
the
the entity.
seasonal resort,
Yeah.
the whole issue,
Yeah.
could,
Thank you.
there, I have sort of an ongoing list of things, and I noticed that a few of the headings that I put on the list all fall under the category of housing. I don't know, do you feel like seasonal would fall under that category and that we should sort of address housing all at once, or is it separate?
Housing as
I
it
think
pertains
it's,
to
I
the
think it's
definition,
probably,
or?
I think it's separate.
Just
I think
the
it's
broad
separate
issue of
because
housing.
I guess it depends on the seasonal cottage, whether it's a residence or a rental.
Okay,
Take a couple of months.
Do you know what I'm saying? What-
yeah,
But isn't
People-
rental already
Well,
defined?
we eliminated seasonal.
No, you got a whole section here on seasonal.
I know, but if you read this, you'll see that we eliminated it. We just didn't eliminate
Transient,
it from
isn't
this.
it?
But there is language in here that says we eliminated seasonal.
Well, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8
Yeah.
pages that we need to.
They did transient housing.
And the reason it was eliminated was because you can't define seasonal.
somewhere, I can't think of it at the moment, there is a definition somewhere that talks somewhere there's definition.
Seasonal dwelling on page 9, eliminated. Substitute transient lodging adopted 31213.
Meaning what, sorry, what are you saying?
Eliminate
In the
seasonal.
definitions, it says on page 9, seasonal dwelling,
Yeah,
eliminated. Substituting transient lodging. That was
That's because there's a place
31213.
up across from the lake.
The problem is we never substituted it throughout the ordinance.
Hmm.
But maybe you could come up with, it's always been an
definition for
anomaly,
seasonal.
because even with the town clerk's office establishing residency,
Yeah,
it's like 822 Laconia Road. We cannot establish that those are year-round residences. You know they are. I know a woman that's lived there for 10 years.
but,
But all
Technically.
they say you have to say is, oh, well, we don't have a year-round contract with them. And so if somebody leaves for 2 days and comes back, does that mean they're not year-round because, see what I mean, they broke
But my
that?
question on that is, if they're there over, under 180 days, don't they need to pay state tax? Rooms.
That's what I
meals,
talked to
rooms.
Department of Revenue Administration about, and they said, well, and for them, that's really hard to capture, because now for Department of Revenue, 822 Laconia Road will say, well, yeah, they're not, it's not transient lodging, it's year-round apartments. You don't pay room and meals on year-round apartments. But yet for the town, they're transient.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but we already have a definition of transient and seasonal, because the 180 days is,
And we tried to use it with their attorney. So
Well,
maybe
it's
you can
not-
solve
It's
that
just
for
not
us.
822, it's like the Anchorage Inn.
Well, it's all of them.
Those are condominiums that people live in the summertime,
Mhm.
but when they don't live there, people rent it and live in them during the winter.
That's right.
Yeah, I can rent my house for Bike Week if I want.
can I
Same
rent your
thing.
house for bike week? I don't like the
I'll
people.
Should we remove the impact fee portion of our zoning?
oh,
That was one of the ones I had written down,
okay,
was the impact fee.
so I'll just put that as a note, I don't know the answer to that tonight.
Every time I brought it up, they said, no, you can't have impact fee.
Right,
Or at least to get there, don't bother.
it's
We have a
effectively,
master plan.
And we started
We started this several
the
years ago.
process of being able to do that.
They've been trying to put in impact fees for 15 years.
But then,
And
nobody,
eliminating it is
only
the job.
Sandy and I came to the meeting where the Lakes Region Planning person came and talked to us because we paid between $500 and $700 to Lakes Region Planning to help us with impact fees. And basically, he came back and said, you have nothing.
The legislature changed
Yeah,
the
and
requirements.
therefore, there's nothing. For instance, you used to be able to say, we're buying a communication system for the police department, which is the one that we had. That when we turned it over to him, it came back, they changed it. It can't be something like that. It's got to be something like roads. But in our case, it has to be a major intersection. For instance, if Haas's old property, Country Meadows out there, if they suddenly expanded and they built major roads into there, then we could possibly get impact fees from roads. Otherwise, because everything intersects on a state road, we're not eligible for that. We can't get impact fees for the school or for the fire because they're districts. So we're locked in. You know, that's why we've never been able to do anything with it.
It's,
There's a piece of property here in town right now that is looking at fixing a road that goes to their property. And I think you know exactly which one it is. And that would be, if we had no other impact fees, that would be a totally logical one. Now, I don't know how many times that would come up, but it certainly did
Well,
come right up.
what road is it? Is it?
Bitter Lane.
Oh, okay. But it intersects with Route 3.
We're only
And that's-
concerned on Bitter Lane.
No.
Yes.
Impact fee would not be. Impact fee would you would have to, it would have to be a major intersection change. And that really isn't. That's just a new road going into it.
If the road was gonna touch Sherwood
touches
Sherwood
Route
Drive,
3.
or Sherwood
Yeah.
Drive, then it'll be
And then
different.
it would be.
But because the road that we're talking for an impact fee touches a state road, it sounds like it's not eligible for impact fees. So if someone was gonna put, let's just say Buffalo Park was gonna be developed into a housing thing, we would want an impact fee for High Street or whatever, because it's a town, it's just a town issue. But where it's touching Route 3, it becomes a state issue, it's not.
Well, there's a state component, and they had to go through a state process. There's also a local component.
Right, but it's
Yes.
still
But that's
touching
not
the
what
state.
impact fee isn't involved.
That doesn't make sense to me. It still impacts a town road. We have to make improvements to a town road for these people. And why it wouldn't, just because it touches Route 3.
When-
Route
Because
3's
the
got-
state
15.
law changed.
That's right. 15 years ago, it would have been part of it. But once the
State law
legislature changed it, that's how it limited us. Now we can't. It's ridiculous. Although we're pretty developed
So
now.
I figure I know where all the drugs they confiscate go. Straight to Concord.
You must be testing them.
And we can't do anything about that either. I understand.
so, can I
So we could
throw out?
probably,
Have that.
yeah, let's see what we can do with the impact fee, if we can just take it out.
Yeah, should it be removed?
I would
okay.
say it should be.
All right, next one, the one, I think, what I would have put as number one on the list, and maybe that we're not necessarily working in order, is the wetlands ordinance, as Jane's on.
I'm on it right here.
I think that's the one that, if we did, nothing else at town meeting, my vote would be to do that, because we know it's
Oh,
flawed.
no, signage should be my vote.
Okay, but
That
I'm just
would be
saying
a
mine,
close
I'm just saying
second.
mine, yeah.
I think both are
No
very,
need to
very
limit ourselves
important.
to one.
No, we can handle what we want. The town meeting.
I wouldn't have, I would have, yeah, I wouldn't have had signage, just the absolute at the top of
We're
That's what we
losing,
get the
we
most-
lose businesses because of our
this.
signage.
Yeah, that's.
That
And
should
we
be
have
okay.
unhappy businesses
Yeah.
because
And
of our signage
complaints.
regulations.
Yeah, yeah.
But wetlands will get us in trouble.
Right, because we can't say we didn't know that there were issues with it,
Yeah.
you know, it's obvious.
Yeah.
So for wetlands, yeah, I'm going to, I guess, hand out the wetlands ordinance that's in the DES Innovative Land Use Techniques Handbook. This is actually not, I think it was written in 2005, so it's not new. But I think it would be useful for planning board members to take a look at this and compare it to what we have. You'll see a lot of similarities, and then you'll see some areas where this doesn't get us in trouble where our own.
Where did you get this?
It's an innovative land use planning
DES?
techniques.
Oh,
Yeah, DES spearheaded the whole project, but there was a lot of partners in the development of this handbook. It's awesome. I mean, it's a tremendous reference.
And it says here that we need to review the definition of development in our zoning ordinance.
Yeah, and I think on every copy I marked in blue on page 5 or something, so if you looked on if you look on PlanLink, there was recently a lot of discussion on PlanLink. This relates back to that court case that Mr. Stock was shared with us. Basically, DES came out with Eric Williams from DES, sort of chimed in on this PlanLink conversation and said, yes, we are in the process of removing the paragraph about logging from the regulation. I sent him an email today saying, hey, I noticed you haven't removed that yet. What's going on with that? And I got a response. I'm not working for the state anymore. My 25 years were a pleasure and all that. But I think that partially explains why they haven't made the change yet. But he clearly said that we will be removing that. So I wanted to leave it there to show you guys that that's what's coming out. But if we adopt
This D is completely being deleted.
D needs to be taken out. If we were to adopt this and leave D in
But
there,
should we have the language of what should take place in the forestry activity?
Well, I think that goes back a little bit to our conversation that we had at our last planning board, at our last meeting, of how far, what do we see our role? How does this board see its role in sharing information about other regulatory hurdles that an applicant needs to clear? I don't know. Probably there's a way to do it.
Well, one of the things is, I know like in my role as health officer, what happens is, for example, in the state of New Hampshire, there's one individual, that examines all the public pools in the state, all of them. Only one man does that. So I become his eyes and ears. I just recently, a few weeks ago, had this cram session on public swimming pools. But it gave me an idea of what to look for him. So if we could write an ordinance like that in this, that would help us when we go out there, code enforcement, to look and go, okay, he's not enforcing this. We can enforce to a certain extent. Because, for example, they can cross our brooks and streams, but that device has to be removed within a certain amount of time. So we could certainly enforce that portion of it. I know I can as health officer, but code enforcement should as well.
Okay.
I mean, there are things that we're not going to want to put in here to enforce, but something as simple as that, I think we could write some simple language that would give us some say and some authority to be on that site, looking for some sort of violation, and become the eyes and ears, because as they stop funding and funding becomes less, there are going to be less and less forest rangers. I mean, I can't believe they're down to one guy in the entire state. That's all public pools, spas, beaches. One guy.
All right. Wetlands. I feel like wetlands we probably don't need to spend a whole lot of time on because, again, we've been through this several times and I think we know what's wrong. If you guys agree. I can move on, flip the page, move on to the next
I
one.
just wanna know how we're gonna get authority to go on somebody's property. You know,
Yeah, right, that's a good question.
unless
yeah.
you can see violation from,
Right,
away from the property, not on,
yeah.
otherwise.
I can go on as health officer when a stream is involved, because I can check to see if they're polluting water.
Setbacks.
Oh, yeah, good one.
Well, now we're jumping around.
Well, that's fine. It's a brainstorm.
Well,
That's
no,
what they all
wetlands is page 33, setbacks page 35.
Well, wait a minute, are you guys just listing everything in the zoning ordinance?
No.
So we were supposed
No.
to talk about particular things
No,
that we
that's
wanted to work
something
on.
that's, I'm not
First
listing
35 pages,
everything.
so.
All right.
No, I'm
Good to
not.
see this balance.
All right, but I have setbacks on my list too.
Okay.
Well, he's
And,
pretty
I was more concerned with setbacks and the table of dimensional values.
I agree, that's where my
Yeah,
thought,
me
yeah. For some reason, it is kind of
Well,
pops up in
kind of
that.
the explanation is there of what a setback is.
Yeah.
Kind of sort
I
of.
mean, to me, we have, this is one that I have a lot to say, but I think we need to clarify the authority of the code enforcement officer. Someone just came before the zoning board to get a variance to put in a temporary swimming pool. And I certainly understand why Al sent him there, but in my mind, I would rather Al have the authority to yay or nay that. So I feel like,
Wait a minute, temporary swimming pool?
well, I
Well,
mean,
no,
Not an
okay.
in-ground.
not an in-ground.
Okay.
I mean, it is, it's temporary in that he might take it down every winter, but he might not, so,
You
but it's
probably
not
will
in
because it'll
ground.
be too expensive for him to.
I'm sure you got it.
And water-wise and everything else will be too expensive.
Okay.
Well, he did get it.
Cauldron?
And he's one of the few that I've been to that really did have a hardship. Wouldn't you say?
Yes, I
I
agree.
didn't shoot you
A
either.
physically handicapped son.
Oh, that's what the cat scratched me. Excuse me.
Cat scratch.
I have hazardous waste.
He had the easement, he had a lot of good
Yeah,
positive, he was doing it for very positive.
Very good.
Then, okay, there's that. The other thing is, Taco Bell's a prime example. A 50-foot side setback in that part of town does not seem like a good idea to me. Because if you do 50 feet for one business, and then 50 feet for the business beside, you have 100 feet of unusable, potentially tax revenue generating land that's just sitting there.
Well, we had that issue with John Bernard's property. He wanted to put it was like 50 feet and he left him like 20 feet.
Yeah, it's not, I think, to have, in your regional commercial district, to have 50-foot side setback is a perfect example of us needing to evaluate our setbacks. And then I also would say that here, close to town, if you walk the street, you see setbacks that are not anywhere, they're out of whack with the setback requirements that we have. So I'm gonna write, if you guys stop me if I'm way off here, but just evaluate existing conditions and compared, that says compared, to what's currently permitted.
I agree with that to a certain extent, but I know the fire district gets real upset when buildings are only like 2 feet apart.
Oh, yeah, well, okay, so I'll put that, include, health and
Put out
safety
fires
concerns.
sometimes.
Well, I think the fire chief sat here and basically said if something caught on fire in downtown, just sit back and toast the
Oh,
marshmallows.
jeez, yeah,
Yeah, but that was built 100 years ago, so.
yeah,
Right, but you would want to continue that.
right,
You'd
right.
you'd want to try it to
Exactly,
be a
yeah.
But
little more
as he
compliant.
said, you
Well,
want
I-
100 feet of
So-
taxable space.
So, yeah, perfect example, something you wouldn't want to continue to promulgate, or whatever the word is, a health and safety concern that exists. But then when you go, it's like, some of these downtown houses where, you know, the house is close to out to the front of the road, and people have that front porch, and you know, it's sort of that nice residential feeling where, you know, people are walking around saying hi to their neighbors, and maybe there's not a huge, you know, that seems like something we'd want to promote. So.
Next,
Okay.
And again, that would be by zone.
Okay, absolutely.
I think we're gonna find almost everything that we're gonna address is gonna be by zone, 'cause that's one of the issues in this town.
Exactly. There's no consistency.
I think the certificate of occupancy should include the Tilton sewer.
Yes.
Yes,
It doesn't.
There you go.
so
Is
add
that
that
okay?
to the CO.
38, stipulations of local land use board zoning ordinance, applicable state laws and regulations. It should say, what does state
Well,
laws represent?
as far as like plan reviews, it should
Mm,
also.
I
So
agree.
put that down there to make sure that that gets done.
Probably
That
should
should
include
be-
water districts too.
Yeah, but not everybody is on the water.
Not everybody's on the sewer,
Yeah, that can just be a.
Yeah, it's available, yeah, all right.
so I think water and sewer should be.
Yeah, and something I was thinking about, if, when we update our applications, Chairman Allen just kind of mentioned this, that I feel like we should have, we should force people at that point to tell us whether they're on town sewer or what. You know, are you in the wetlands conservation district? Are you in the groundwater protection district? And if they come into me and they don't know the answer, then I'll either say, go find out, or I'll help, more likely I'll help them find the answer, and that's answered from the get-go. Because if we don't ask those questions, sometimes we get a little far down the road when all of a sudden they're like, hey, these guys needed a groundwater, you know,
Right.
permit and whatnot, and haven't properly, you know, sort of, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Next.
I've got one.
I have one too, but I don't know where it is or what. It's allowed dwellings
Mhm.
per lot size.
Mhm, absolutely.
That's the table of dimensional values,
Okay.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, and I think we have a lot of work over the next few years to do on this. I think one of the things is to just that, address dwellings per lot on the table of dimensional values. But in another way, and that may, I see that as maybe more challenging than if we did an accessory apartment just bit. And on that, I'd like to hand out, there's a Senate bill that I've mentioned a few times recently. Can you just pass that around?
Sure.
Thank you. So in this handout that's going around right now, there's a Senate bill that I talked to one of the people who's most sort of at the forefront of promoting this, and he did say it's moving forward. It's certainly, you know, he didn't say, no, that's never going to happen. I think he felt like it is going to happen. So we may have that at some point. But on the back, the last page of it,
Isn't that funny?
I took something, I think it's the town of Derry, and I thought it gave some good ideas that you guys can look at. Just if we were to decide we wanted to add more opportunity for accessing dwelling units, I think we could go on, the board could go into the the permitted uses and add accessory apartment and decide which zones the board wants to permit accessory apartments in. The Senate bill would say anywhere that you're allowed to have a single-family residence, you're allowed to have an accessory apartment. If the town, I think at this point, since that's not law yet, the town could go and say, okay, well, we only want to do this in certain zones. And then you say, okay, if it's allowed in that zone, then here are the requirements. And boom, now go do it. Because that, again, that's a big one I've gotten a lot of calls on since I've been here. People sort of really, needing, really, I think for financial reasons, really needing that accessory apartment and being, calling the town scared, sort of, a friend of a friend wants to know if I can have an apartment, and, it's clear.
But don't we already have some language that talks about that? I know it does as far as I could put a mobile home on my property as elderly housing. Or,
I don't know, I mean,
This doesn't
I
have
guess-
to be elderly housing, this can.
yeah, I don't feel, I guess, I mean, we should talk about it more, what opportunities you feel like are in the ordinance. I feel like there's some opportunity for accessory housing, but apartments, but not as, I feel like the town would benefit from more.
I think we have too much control on what we have. It's not clear that you can read this and go, okay, I can put in accessory housing for a family member.
Yeah. I mean,
Unless I jump through a bunch of gopher holes.
But people don't just want it for family members today.
Yeah.
They want it because they need additional income.
That's
Right.
right.
I mean,
And
I
they
mean-
have what was an in-law apartment, and they don't have in-laws anymore to live there, and they wanna rent it to someone. That's the issue that people have today.
I mean,
Is that
let's.
what you're getting called
Yeah,
on, Dar?
Sure, and let's say, an elderly couple has a large farmhouse in the rural agricultural district, and they are not working anymore. Their income has been significantly reduced. They have this house where they raise 2 or 3 kids. They got all these empty bedrooms. The septic can easily handle another person. Right now, the zoning ordinance doesn't permit them to put in an accessory apartment. To me, I just feel like the town's missing out on an opportunity there.
But you know what's interesting? The state law allows on an agricultural property for the farmer to have an apartment for farmhands.
Yeah,
So state law does allow that.
okay, but, we want,
So
in
we
my
could
mind,
not-
if that person, that couple that imaginary couple I just mentioned, I feel like if they wanted to rent to someone who works for the fire department,
You got a young professional coming in, they
Yeah.
can't afford a house yet.
exactly,
Yeah.
everybody
They wanna-
wins, the town wins, the fire department wins, because, they got a great candidate who maybe couldn't find housing, they would have had to go work for the Manchester Fire Department, who knows? Yeah, I think it's a win situation.
And also, I think it eliminates the people, trying to be hush-hush because,
Exactly.
grandma and grandpa passed away.
Right.
Now we're gonna have our friend,
Right.
hey, we know this, our friends, they need a place to live to help them save for a house for 2 years.
Right, they're going underground, they're going.
But then you have to worry about what type of impact is that gonna have on the schools, because if they build a, just short of a 2-family house, and that, you have 3 kids in there, I mean.
That's why it's not, never been really allowed.
Yeah, I
Open
mean,
blanket here.
and
It's trying to
there's a
control
million
school population.
potential responses to that,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we wanna get into it.
No, but I'm just.
But, yeah,
But it would be interesting to see some language that would allow that. I would think that you would have some restrictive size,
This does.
you
Yeah,
don't want
right.
6 bedrooms, you
It
don't
shall be
want.
composed of limited to kitchen, living room, 1 bedroom, and a bathroom.
10%
so, yeah, I agree, I mean,
structure.
I feel like there has to be
Once you
something.
do it, you can't change this original structure.
More than 10%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So then the
mean,
kitchen and living room.
Right,
So
but I mean,
kinda what we're saying
so
is-
that's fashioned exactly on that, but
Well, it is a way for the future, because there's an awful lot of people that can't afford to buy a home, but they want to live in a rural setting,
I
you
have a
know?
feeling we need more of this, less.
Well, that's what
Restrictive is-
when we went to the last workshop,
Yeah.
it was very clear in every,
Yes.
They were even making
Yeah.
mini houses,
Mm.
a big cluster.
yeah,
well, I think communities got very restrictive on mobile home parks. I know we did. We had language that basically said you could build a mobile home park, but the amount of square footage required for each lot, and it could only be built in the agricultural area, and they had to have sewer. Well, in the town of Tilton, the sewer's never gonna go to the agricultural district.
Not in our
It's just not
lifetime,
going to.
Well, there's some sewer that's over like
Oh.
with the first couple.
But that's-
Some, but
that's-
most of those places, it'll never,
Well, I'll never get
again,
there.
not
So
my
it
lifetime.
was,
And those are
and then it was
condominiums now.
changed
Mm.
because it was recognized that, you know, you have to allow mobile homes. It is affordable housing. And if done correctly, it's very appealing. Certainly the fellow who bought Sherryland is doing a very nice job.
Absolutely.
Indeed, I
Yeah.
rode up there. I was not that thrilled, but that has a lot to do with the previous owner.
Mm.
Yeah.
But they've done a nice
What
job.
he's doing is nice.
Nice in there.
Very nice.
Everybody has a lawn, there's views. I mean,
Well,
it
some
really
of them,
is
it's
nice.
amazing, some of them have garages,
Yeah,
they have porches,
Yeah,
wonderful views.
But,
and their mortgage is probably, you know, a fourth of what.
oh no, they're going for.
I think
like
between
10,
the chart of
25,
permitted
30.
uses and the
They have
table
to
of
pay
dimensional
their
values,
assessed value.
there's a ton of boatload of work to be done.
What's that?
Between the chart of permitted
Yeah.
uses and dimensional values.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
But I feel like,
Looks like we've got a lot of
I
stuff.
think we've got all we can handle
So
right
far.
now.
Yes.
okay,
Yeah, because if we get some of this done, we've done well.
I guess I didn't hand this out. I think sorry, I told you guys I was gonna hand out these, or maybe I didn't. And this is a section just from OEP's handbook on zoning amendments. You know, I know these questions will come up and we'll all become very
We
well
just
versed on
looked
all
at
this stuff.
density right now on the table of dimensional values.
Yep.
We just focused on that one section.
But I think, Catherine, something you brought up earlier today, or whenever it was, is that I feel like the board right now is doing a really good job of recognizing that any one change at one point of the regulation is gonna impact not just the rest of the zoning ordinance, but the subdivision and site plan review. So and you know, when you mentioned we have tons of work to do on just those two charts alone, I think it's sort of like that. If we worked off those, I bet you we'd wind up touching on a lot of these things here because of the fact that we are cognizant of the fact that you can't just change one thing without going through and changing everything else.
And that's gonna require a lot of work. That's not just something that, you know, you can
Right.
skim through it
Yeah,
and
yeah.
find it.
And then, even if you get in the groove and I'm sitting down on my computer and, you know, I'm cruising through it, it still has to bring it back to everyone else and get hacked apart. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely not a
And then you
easy
got
process.
town meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Town
Yeah, the
meeting
entire-
always just passes whatever the planning
I was
board
just gonna
recommends,
say,
Yeah, pretty
they
much.
don't even
which
read
Oh,
is
it.
really sad.
Yeah,
Well, but I
but
hate
it
to
could be a
say
thing.
that they're often written poorly. People don't know what they're voting
Not
on
enough
half the time.
information.
Because there's not enough information and they're written in like double negatives.
Or they get it that day and they go,
It's very
yeah, all right, what, sure, you bet.
And they don't come to the public hearings.
No.
All right, so Dari, if you will, you've given us these, I think we need to review all of this.
Yes.
And this may stimulate us to come up with other things. But if you could get us those notes,
Mm-hmm.
then maybe the next time we can prioritize those
Yeah.
and pick maybe two, and then from those two, we'll touch on these others, I think.
Okay, can I throw out one more?
Sure.
All right.
You must.
How many trees did you kill?
This is a fun one, to me anyway. Okay, as I think I've shared with you, a lot of calls about chickens.
I think zoning already took care of that, didn't they?
What's that?
The zoning board already took care of the chickens.
Well,
didn't
They are,
They set a precedent.
that,
So,
yes, although I have to say again, through a special exception, not through a variance.
Okay, how many of them actually followed through with what is required for a special exception?
In terms of the applicant, you
In
mean,
terms of our zoning ordinance?
I mean, for this,
How many of them visited the site?
oh, they did. They
Actually, they
did.
said they did,
I mean,
and I think they did, because it's right on Winter Street.
I think, yeah, I mean, my thought was that, you know, a zoning board granting variances all the time is probably a bad thing. A zoning board granting special exceptions all the time may not be a bad thing. That's, you know,
No,
they're
as long as
different.
they follow the.
I thought they handled it very well.
I thought so too, yeah.
I was there.
I listened to some of that.
But anyway, so that the zoning board doesn't have to become the chicken permitting board, I thought maybe we could look at this, and I shouldn't even say on tape where it's from, because it's not New Hampshire.
Shall be noted in the records.
I know that that rarely goes over well to bring a non-New Hampshire
No factual
document
evidence is
into
found
a
the
Hampshire
property of
meeting,
the
but-
district will be reduced due to incompatible land use. No valid objection from the abutters. No nuisance or hazard. Yeah, where do they get names?
Then they're just fun.
Yeah,
There's adequate area for safe and sanitary sewage disposal.
so this is the last thing I want to throw out for tonight. I got a lot of calls on chickens. I have received one or at least one call on bees. So I thought, it maybe made sense to, if the board's going to take a stab at, sort of home-based agriculture, we should probably include, the board should probably include bees as well.
But
It's
when
not
does that
nearly as-
become agriculture? So if I have a son or daughter,
You do.
and I live in this village area here, and I buy them one of those hives that you can put on your window so they can study them, is that agriculture? Or is this just a hobby?
I think it's a hobby there.
Is it big, and it's big enough so that he can actually take honey out of it? Is that a hobby? Is that agriculture? If somebody has one hive, and that's certainly not enough to, sustain itself from selling the commodity, is that now agriculture, or is that hobby?
Well, is that the same thing as tapping your maple tree in the spring to
Exactly.
make maple syrup? I think that's a hobby, but if all of a sudden a flatbed truck pulls up and I got 30 hives, then I'm gonna get, I think my neighbors want to know about it, or if someone wants to
So
know
we have
about
to
it.
think about, when does it become
Yeah,
agriculture, when
that's
is
a good
it not
point.
just a hobby?
Yeah, so good point. What I pass around is City of Cleveland, Ohio,
This is
where I
great.
was born, by the way.
Get out.
That explains it. That
Like
explains it.
Cleveland?
Yeah.
Basket-
There is something good in
Well, here you
Ohio.
Is that the rock and roll
Yes,
house?
This answers your
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
I've been there.
No more
Yeah.
than one
I've been to
beehive,
Cleveland, it doesn't.
no more than one beehive shall be kept for 2,400 square feet of lot area.
Yeah.
There you go.
And no beehive shall be kept on a lot less than 24. That's to think about. In the village district, that would be key.
Yeah, this is, it may be a different state and certainly a much larger population than what we have here in Tilton, but I bet some of the densities are similar. And what I liked about this Cleveland one, the reason I passed this around and not some of the others I looked at, is that it's relatively simple. It doesn't get bogged down in a lot of technical language, and it also doesn't, I thought some of the others required a little too much of the applicant. I can't remember, there was something like Laconia, for example, I felt like some of the requirements that they had were a little much. It was a while ago now, I can't remember specifics, but I felt like this Cleveland ordinance actually had a level of clarity that I thought was attractive.
I like how it has a license and a license expiration, because then if there's a lot of complaints from neighbors, there's a methodology to stop it from continuing year to year.
Yeah,
Or
and
2 years, or whatever. Yeah,
I like the fact that
I
I don't
agree.
think you're gonna hear rooster geese or turkeys if they're 100 feet away.
I like the fact that all animals shall be provided with a covered, predator-proof coop too. Because then they can't be killed by.
Yeah, and like
Right.
greenies.
Trust me, they can.
Take that
And
down.
I'm sorry, there's actually 2 documents in there. When you come to, the first is basically the standards, the requirements. The later pages are the application procedures, and you'll see that there's a fee. That, as along with that application, there's a fee and there's an inspection. So Catherine, you might potentially add a chicken inspector to your
Chicken checking.
ever-growing list of duties.
She hadn't ever been anything
And
to
bee
do,
checking.
so, yeah.
Watch out the bee suit on.
I
She'll look like Michael J. Fox.
They get a 2-year, they'd have to get a 2 years license from you though, Catherine. You could become our Department of Public Health.
I am,
No, I'm saying, you could get a 2-year
actually,
license.
the Board of Selectmen is the Department of Public Health. I'm the health officer.
Yeah. So,
Designated representative.
Is allowed to speak to the chicken checker.
I have an owl in my house.
A solid fence or doesn't touch no
Me too.
flyaway.
So you've got your
flyaway
wife already.
barrier.
I'm telling you, do you know that his wingspan is bigger than I am tall? I've never seen anything like it.
We've got eagles, so we don't have lots of other strings in our neighborhood.
No, not if you've got an eagle, everything else is dead.
We have 2 eagles and a nest. And they
I have
come
a
back
red
every
hawk.
year,
Where
so.
do you live?
That's,
In Tilton.
Okay, fine.
I don't announce that on the
That's
camera,
okay.
just because I don't want anybody messing with
It
me.
is, but I'll tell you what,
I
you don't want
understand
anyone
that.
keeping
Like,
pigs,
I
goats, and
look like,
sheep
I would mess with.
in a residential neighborhood.
No, he's saying
But
it's
it's
not
on
So it's
recorded.
parcel land less than 24.
It's on the tape.
On the tape.
If they've got less than 5
Okey-dokey.
acres, you don't want
Sorry.
to have them.
I'll tell you all about it.
Okay.
We have 6 pigs, they can smell them down the road, it's just, my daughter
No, I
can smell them.
didn't. I did not. I don't even use that
And I've got a
phrase.
big pig pen, it's not like a small area. Like a concrete area they can walk on.
all right, anything else?
Just a quick, not regarding this, but just in general. There seems to be a lot of cars being stored. Is that like an art issue or
A lot of
something? Across from Chili's and all that.
oh, well,
When does that become a car lot? I was thinking that myself.
yeah. I was
They have the
wondering
right
same.
to store their property on their property.
But if
Prices
When
and-
if
they
you look
start
at the
putting,
tax records, though, it's a different owner. I mean, it's different company names on each of those
I'm
lots.
just
No,
curious.
it's an LLC, I think, isn't
it
it?
is, it's like the Agway is owned by a different company, but it's the same group of people.
That doesn't
But
matter.
if they're not actively selling the cars there and they're only storing them there.
Yeah,
I
they're
don't
not
think
bringing
it's-
salespeople
Yeah,
down
they're
there, they're
not
not letting the
violating the
public go
ordinance.
down there.
It seems to me that if it went on for a long time, that maybe we could say, okay, you're using a piece of property as a car storage facility and it wasn't site planned to do that. But, I don't know, Eric, would you agree that it hasn't really reached that period of time
No,
yet?
I'm just, but
There's
when
not
the,
that many. 24, maybe.
My thought was like if 2 months or a month from now they're still there, that I was gonna mention something to Al, but that
no,
was,
just a curiosity. It's like, when does it become a car lot? And when does it-
I had the same question, yeah, I don't know.
My only concern would be if they started storing vehicles that need to be repaired up there. that
Oh,
they-
But you know the
Weekend.
difference, really.
They don't
They don't have
shiny.
tags on the windows that say, 2014, or,
Well, they'll have year numbers on it, but if you start seeing ones that have no front ends on it, then.
Yeah, then I'd have an issue.
Yeah, it's kind of obvious.
All right,
That's the question.
if there's nothing else then, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, actually, Chairman Allen, we didn't, take the
minutes.
pleasure of reviewing the minutes.
Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes?
I did.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept them or
Make a
correct.
motion to accept the minutes of May, I know I can't get my email.
It's May,
Of May
16th, was it?
May 12th.
May 12th, 2015, as written.
second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
I have no.
Oh, that's right.
Make a motion.
She's here, I
Make a
have
motion to
no.
adjourn.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I usually vote with my feet in.
Yeah, really.
You're opposed, you stay.
Is my hair dry yet?
Yeah.
Just about, yep,
Perfect.
perfect.
If you're
Turn
gonna
that
do the
camera off,
The
Joe.
next question on that is, the country cottage that opened up, they're using half of their parking for car storage. So now they don't have adequate parking for the size of their store. So what happens
Where's
there?
this?
Well, and I thought that was interesting, because I thought those people bought that building.
Where?
They were long-term tenant.
They're a long-term tenant,
Where?
so.
Where?
Did you stop this?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I thought
No,
they
it was
bought
never
it
on.
too.
How do I turn this off?
You get
I
me
saw
every
that.
time
That's
on it.
interesting that the owners would,
It doesn't work like the one upstairs.
But